are coming off our best Sunday podcast here on the Turf and Touchdowns podcast. 7 winning selections out of 9 selections and a couple of injuries as well. But we'll get to that later on in the week. Myself, Luke Elder, alongside Tom Collins. We're just looking to keep the ball rolling now, Tom.
Yeah, very much so. It was definitely our best Sunday. Hopefully all of you guys were tuned in and you watched our podcast and also backed plenty of our winners. We had 2 winning player of the days. Do we save that until Sunday?
That's a Sunday thing.
Okay, so we've got 2 victory sips to come. And obviously our two losers were a little bit unlucky. You especially, David Montgomery was your only loser. You went 3 from 4 and he suffered an MCL. Was it a tear or a sprain? Whatever it was, he's out for the year.
Yeah. He's having surgery, but it's not been said what on.
But on that matter, by the way, Jahmyr Gibbs, RB1 in fantasy from now on. And my only loss was Tyreek Hill, which was a little bit unfortunate, considering he had a play right at the end of the game where he could have gone over. But also, I'm pretty sure Tyreek's playing hurt, because I watched that game live at certain points, and he was holding onto his right hamstring and doing stretches. He's been pretty poor this year, so maybe he is playing hurt. Nevertheless, 7 out of 9, phenomenal week. And hopefully all you guys at home that tuned in, back to plenty of them. If this is your first ever podcast, high expectations from now on, I'm sure.
Absolutely. That's what we do every week. We're making a big thing out of it, but we do it every week. It's week in, week out. I will say one thing. Tyreek Hill is definitely playing hurt. He's announced it. He's putting off his surgery until after the season, but that's on his wrist, not his hamstring.
Right, okay. That would make half sense. I'm pretty sure it's a leg injury as well. The guy must be absolutely battered, to be fair. How old? He must be like 33 by now, and yeah, he takes big hits.
Yeah, he's one of the few remaining players in the NFL that's still actually older than us and not born past the year of 2000. But look, it's an intriguing time for the NFL. We've got the Broncos taking on the Chargers coming up. We will tell you about our good friends, though, over at SBK. Go download the SBK app if you're a new customer. You get £40 in free bets after you place £10 in stakes. What are you waiting for? T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly, 18 plus. And also, come back for our Sunday video. And SBK, they offer you a 25% ACCA boost on top of everything. And now Tom's going to point down below and tell you there's something in the description.
There is a link in the description down below, guys. Yeah, please click that. Please do create your account with SBK. Look, it's always good to have an extra betting account, even if you use another firm as well. And SBK is a good betting firm to have on side. Good prices on all American sports, whether that be horse racing, if you want to bet one of our picks in a horse racing podcast, or NFL, or anything, football, you can name it and they have it. It helps us out as well, guys. Obviously, the production of the podcast doesn't come cheap. So, the fact that SBK is sponsoring is great news. And if you sign up with them, it really helps us.
Absolutely so. And basically, the contract runs out at the end of December, so we'd really like them to come back in again. So if you go and tell them, God, these guys on Turf and Touchdowns are real good, that would just be great for us. Also, we want to be at 450 subscribers by the end of this week. That's 450 subscribers by the end of this week. We're currently on 412. So if you're listening to this thinking, these two guys really know what they're talking about, or if you're thinking, handsome, both. Just subscribe. Subscribe will tell you everything that we're doing in the near future, and hopefully a few winners as well. We're just a couple of Green Bay fans, aren't we, Tom? A couple of Green Bay fans.
Yeah, we are. After last week, we're both a couple of Green Bay fans. It's great to have you on side, mate.
Yeah, a couple of Green Bay fans. It wasn't great, going to be honest with you. Tom didn't actually stay up for the game, but that's by the by.
Right, I have an excuse. I'm in Saudi Arabia. It's 3 hours ahead of the UK. The game started at 4:20 a.m. I made it to 4 a.m. and then I couldn't make it up for the remainder of the game. So hands up, but at the same time, I did watch extended highlights before messaging you and gloating the next day.
Yeah, Sam Howell, turns out, not the guy.
Not the guy.
Not the guy. Don't know how Washington managed to get him passing touchdowns and looking like a functional quarterback last year, but he's not the guy. In this week on Thursday Night Football, we've got the Broncos taking on the Chargers. A game we have spoke about already this season. They played each other in week 6, but the Broncos are 3-point underdogs. The over-under points-wise is 42.5. The Chargers favourites at home. We got to the time of year, Tom, where there's a lot of guys that are beaten up here. Patrick Surtain left the game last week. We think he's going to be good to go. Obviously, no J.K. Dobbins for the Chargers. That's been the case for the last few weeks. Gus Edwards hasn't looked fantastic in that. Will Disley's hurt as well for the Chargers. He could come back this week, but it's unlikely. So we're getting into territory where guys are getting hurt, and you kind of have to reassess a few things through that.
Yeah, exactly. You've mentioned some big names there. No more so than J.K. Dobbins. He was phenomenal at the start of the year, coming off an injury himself, actually. And the fact that he's gone down over the last couple of weeks, there's been a humongous drop off between Dobbins and Edwards. I don't think that would be the case. I thought Edwards would be able to pick up where Dobbins left off. And if it wasn't Edwards, then I thought Vidal, the rookie, would be able to kind of take that mantle just because the offensive line has been really good in LA. But that's not the case. When their running game isn't firing, all the pressure is then on Justin Herbert. Herbert's a very good quarterback, but he doesn't have many weapons. McConkey's playing hurt. Quentin Johnston's playing hurt. Will Dissly is hurt. So as you say, that LA team right now, especially on offense, is really kind of paying for injuries late in the year. Denver's slightly better. You did mention Patrick Surtain, but we do believe he's going to play in this matchup, which is crucial, isn't it?
It is. It is a big thing. He's a huge part of their brilliant defense, and if he does play, then you can downgrade all Chargers receivers, which leads us nicely into our first selection. Because Tom, you are downgrading a Chargers receiver.
I am. Now, originally, I wanted Lad McConkey unders here, and I saw the line was 63 or 64, something like that. I thought that was absolutely fair. I could take the under, and I could be cheering against Lad McConkey. But we know since day one I'm a big Lad McConkey fan. I just can't do it. Plus, and this is a big plus, he's going to line up in the slot, I think, more than usual this Thursday night. We see him out wide. I think it's 75% of times he's taking snaps out wide and 25 in the slot. I think that's going to change a little bit because of Pat Surtain. In the match between these two earlier in the year, back in week 6, finished 23-16 in favour of LA. And none of the wide receivers were really doing much. I'll give some stats later in a second. But Lam McConkey didn't have anywhere near his best game. So I think they're going to mix up with McConkey. They basically need McConkey to fire, or they've got nothing on offense without J.K. Dobbins. So I didn't want to take the unders. I was so keen on looking at McConkey originally, but I'm switching up to Quentin Johnston. I'm taking the unders on Quentin. The line is set to 43.5. I'm going to sweat this one out. Everyone knows that we don't like unders on this podcast, but I'm going to sweat this one. Quentin Johnston is playing hurt. Now, there is an asterisk next to playing. Is he going to play? I'm not sure. He was a limited or a DMP on Monday. I don't actually know what he is on Tuesday, but hopefully he does play. Hopefully he plays hurt, and hopefully he doesn't hit his overline here. There are two reasons why I like the unders here. Firstly, I think Pat Surtain's going to be on Lam McConkey when he's out wide, but as I say, I think he'd be in the slot quite often, and therefore Surtain may switch to Johnston. If Surtain switches to Johnston, Quentin's not catching anything. It's just not going to happen. You can't throw on Pat Surtain, and every QB and offensive play caller knows that. So that will immediately drop his target share. Secondly, Quentin Johnston's been either hit or complete miss this year. If you look at his stats, 6 of his 12 games, he's actually gone under 43 receiving yards, and they've been against some good matchups as well. He's just not been a part of the offense. On the other 6 occasions, he's been pretty good, and he's had a couple of games where he's really excelled and looked like a completely different wide receiver. But he's been very hit or miss. Against Denver last year, game earlier in the campaign, he only had, I believe, 40-ish yards. He hit the under that day as well. I think it could be very much the same story. His injury is an ankle problem. Now, if you've ever played wide receiver or heard any stories about wide receivers with ankle problems, you can't cut. It's impossible to make quick cuts. So he's going to be useless on slants, 5 and ins, 10 and ins and outs, maybe even posts, albeit he could probably run a post with an ankle injury. But it really just limits his route tree. So give me the Johnson under. If he has 1 or 2 catches, I'm absolutely fine with it, as long as it's not a deep route. And he's not going to catch on Surtain. So I'll sweat this one, mate.
Is there any chance Patrick Surtain switches to Lad McConkey?
Not in the slot. I don't think so. I feel like you have to keep him out wide. It depends. If McConkey's out wide constantly in the game, which would be foolish from a Chargers perspective, then he would be on McConkey because McConkey's a better receiver. Yeah. But I don't think that will happen.
No, that's fair enough. Quentin Johnston has had an uptick in his usage, we'll say, in the last couple of games. 7 targets, 10 targets. He's caught 5 of them on both occasions. And he is being used more, but Tom says he's hit and miss. That's quite literally right, because he generally misses catching the ball. He was absolutely dreadful. I think it was Baltimore. He was 0 for 5, or 0 catches, 5 targets. And he just dropped everything. In fairness, I made him our What on Earth, or my What on Earth, the week after. And he's been slightly better since, but he's still Quentin Johnston, so we'll factor that in. I'm going to go for something, or do something that I did earlier on in the year, and take the Bo Nix over rushing yards. I think Bo Nix is back to potentially somewhere near his rushing best. Now, last week, he returned over 5 carries. He had 8 of them in total. That was after the bye. Maybe he was a touch hurt going into the bye, and he's just got a little bit healthier. He's had 5 or more carries, though, in 8 of the first 9 weeks of this season. The other game where he didn't manage 5, he had 4. So he still was being used. After that, they kind of went away from using him a fair bit. The Denver running game got a little bit better in whoever of the 4 they were using, but he's had no more than 3 carries in weeks 10 through 13, which is a touch concerning. But say last week, returning to 8 carries, he didn't do a great deal with them. We are used to him doing a bit more, but that is a little bit more promising. And he's beaten the Chargers on the ground as well this year. They played each other in week 6, as we've said. He rushed 6 times in that game for 61 yards. That is more than good enough to be covering it in this spot. And you can run on the Chargers as well if you are a quarterback. Baker Mayfield last week only ran 2 times, but for 25 yards. That was in a blowout. Patrick Mahomes a couple of weeks ago ran 4 times for 17 yards. Again, he's not really been running the ball that efficiently, Patrick Mahomes. Wait till we get to the playoffs and you'll see something completely different from him, as we do every single year. More focus will have to go into stopping the receiving game than the run game. The run game for Denver, honestly, it's not very good. It's nothing that you'd be too worried about. Javonte Williams isn't doing much. Jaleel McLaughlin isn't doing a great deal either. Audric Estime, we were promised stuff, but we never really got it from Estime. But in the passing game, Bo Nix didn't pass for that many yards. I think about 160 yards last week. Still passed for 3 touchdowns. And Cortland Sutton's playing the best football probably of his entire career, and he's looking fantastic. I think Bo Nix is going to have to run in this. The Chargers, they get on you quickly as a defensive line. I think over 17.5 rushing yards is something I not only like, but it's something that I expect from Bo Nix, Tom.
Yeah, I actually I know we said this a lot, and I bring it up every time we do a podcast, that we hold hands with our selections and say, yeah, we like that, yeah, we like that. But generally and genuinely, you've done very well with these Bo Nix lines, and you're very good at pinpointing when to take them and when not to take them. And as you've already mentioned, I was going to bring it up if you didn't, but Baker Mayfield, he had that one run against the Chargers defense last week on Sunday, and it just looked like he was cruising. And Baker Mayfield, he's relatively fast, deceptively fast, but Bo Nix is a much better runner of the ball, and he carries the ball more often. So I feel like your selection here is more like a good thing, and mine is slightly more hopeful depending on matchup. But hopefully we both land our picks.
I am in the semi-final of our fantasy league, the redraft league. I've got Bo Nix. I've also got Geno Smith, who takes on Minnesota. Yeah. And Caleb Williams is on the waiver wire.
That's not a good selection this week, I have to admit.
Okay, I don't want Bo Nix because I don't think it will be a high point scoring game. I think Geno will go big. I think
is Geno healthy?
Yeah, he's fine. Yeah, he's absolutely fine. He saw Sam Howell play and he thought, you know what? I suddenly feel a lot better. Actually, my knee is all good. It's good to go. The red zone play from Geno has been terrible. The touchdown upside has been not an upside at all. It's been terrible, but yardage wise, he's fine. I'd expect him to go over 300 this week, and we might talk about that again on Sunday. And then Caleb Williams, his O-line, I would say his O-line hate him, but his O-line just aren't very good, bless him.
It's the worst O-line in the league, and it's only the only team that is second to that is the Houston Texans. All the other O-lines are actually a little bit respectable, but that Chicago Bears O-line, I mean, Williams spends half his time just like scouring every blade of grass behind the line of scrimmage. I've got him in one fantasy league, and I wouldn't advise picking him up. It's just sack after sack and scramble after scramble. He doesn't really get great fantasy points either.
So are we going Team Geno here against Minnesota?
This week, I'm happy to go Team Geno.
Yeah. Out of all the morsels that are left, there's also Kirk Cousins on the waiver wire.
I did play the whole game.
I did. I have looked at Cooper Rush.
Oh, dearie me.
I've got
that's last resort.
I've got CD Lamb, and Cooper Rush looked good last week. So I'm a little bit more tempted into Cooper Rush than I possibly should be. But let's recap on our selections, brought to you by SBK. I'm also going to do this as well, Tom, because we did say that there was a forfeit coming. So
yes, there's the forfeit, guys. We did. I would have made it that Luke had to wear a Green Bay Packers shirt for the Seahawks losing last week, if you don't know what we're talking about. However, I am the other halfway across the other side of the world, and Luke just doesn't own a Packers shirt, which is crazy to me. I mean, why wouldn't Luke own a Packers shirt? This is kind of the next.
I just got rid of it. I just got rid of it.
Yeah, just went, didn't it?
Yeah, the dogs tore it to shreds. It was weird. I don't know, but
this is the next best thing. This is his forfeit.
Yeah, I was going to try and go down to the green post-it notes, You can't see that. But,
Oh.
but I thought, you know what? There's a lot of posting to be done. I'm not going to go down to green just yet. That's full of,
not just this podcast.
yeah, I've got like Christmas trails to do around the house for little ones. It's whatever. But Tom, your selection for Thursday Night Football is
Quentin Johnson under 43.5 receiving yards at 10-11. My only play.
I'm going to go Bonix over 17.5 rushing yards at 10-11. Hopefully he can do much like he did earlier on in the year for us and land that in the first quarter. I think he was against New Orleans when he managed to do that. But Bonix back to rushing ways over 17.5 rushing yards for myself. We are back later on this week. There's no horse racing podcast this week. That's correct, right?
That is correct. And I'm blaming you guys out there for not watching our last one. We did really well. We had a winner. We'll be back on Boxing Day with horse racing. But we have got Sunday NFL. That's coming up.
We have got Sunday NFL, and if we get bored, we might do something else and do something a bit more special. I don't know, but horse racing wise, we managed to get a winner. It was a very boring race, but we were okay on that, and we had a fantastic Sunday as well on the Turf and Touchdowns podcast. That is us done for Thursday Night Football, though. Very best of luck if you are playing in fantasy, trying to get into the championship game. Let us know in the comments down below who you have and who you are against. But until we speak to you on Sunday, have a very good week. Stay safe. Look after one another. Goodbye.
Get us to 450 followers.